This topic of neural columns is a bit complex and difficult to master, but it is essential for our preparation that we should have a good knowledge about the topic. So we'll build upon some concepts and then try to take care of some of the MCQs as well. See, neural columns is about some of the pathways which are going to take care of motor components and the sensory components in the nervous system. Let us first focus upon the motor components. As you see, motor components, there are three types of muscles. First of all, you should understand that when we say motor, it is going to be efferent, and efferent means always some muscle. Whenever you will find the term efferent, which is motor, it is always about muscle. Now that muscle could be a skeletal muscle, like you see, maybe the biceps brachii, or it could be the smooth muscle, like the smooth muscle of stomach, or it could be the cardiac muscle. So there are three types of muscles, maybe cardiac or smooth, which are actually visceral muscles, and then there could be a skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscles are also called as the somatic muscles. There is a somatic nervous system which is controlling the skeletal muscle, and there is autonomic nervous system which is controlling the visceral muscles. So autonomic nervous system is controlling the visceral muscles, which could be cardiac, smooth, and the skeletal muscles are controlled by somatic nervous system. But we need to have some terminologies like GSE. Now, when you say GSE, what is E for? As I suggested, E is efferent, and efferent is always muscle. Now, if you say E is efferent and it is always muscle, then what is S for? As we just said, somatic, the skeletal. And then what is G for? G is actually general. Actually, there is a general category and there is a special category, and this is general category. So when you are telling GSE, it will include most of the skeletal muscles like biceps brachii. So most of the skeletal muscles like biceps brachii or any skeletal muscle in your body, except few, are GSE. G for general, S for somatic, and E for efferent. General, somatic muscles. Then what is cardiac and smooth muscles? They are GVE. Now if you say the cardiac and smooth muscles are GVE, what is G for again? G is general. There is a general category, there is a special category, these are again general category. And V for visceral, because they are visceral muscles, which is cardiac and smooth muscle, and A is muscle. But E is efferent, yeah, muscle. Remember, whenever you find the term E, it means muscle. So you have known one GSE neural column and one GVE neural column now. Then let us talk about their sensations. See, when you are talking about sensations, there will be several types of sensation. We are just focusing upon two of them, and they are, could be somatic sensation. What is somatic? Could be visceral sensation. What is visceral? See, it's very simple. Visceral means it is inside the body. And what about somatic? It is outside. What does that mean? Somatic means the body wall. Whatever is related with body wall, outside. And what is inside? That is viscera. So inside the body wall you have viscera, and outside the body wall is somatic. Somatic is also called as the parietal. Now if you say somatic is parietal, parietal is opposite of visceral. See, there is a visceral pleura and there is a parietal pleura. Parietal pleura is towards the outside or the body wall, and visceral pleura is towards the viscera. That could be lung. Now once you have this orientation, see, there can be a neural column which is called as GSA. Now when you say GSA, what is G for again? General. It is not special. And what is S for? Somatic. What is somatic? Somatic means the peripheral or parietal. Any sensation which come from periphery or parietal. And what is A for? A is sensation. But A for afferent, but sensation. So remember, A, whenever you find the term A, it is always afferent. is some sensation. Are you talking about general somatic sensations? Yes, general somatic sensation, which could be touch, pain, temperature, etc. Maybe vibration and proprioception also. So proprioception is also GSA. Yes. What is cardiac muscle pain, angina, or smooth muscle pain, colic then? If you say cardiac muscle pain, angina pain, or smooth muscle pain, colicky pain, then they are called as GVA. And what is the full form of GVA? What is G for? G for general. And what is V for? The visceral. And what is A for? Sensation. A is for afferent, but afferent means sensation. So, we have a GVA neural column. G for general, V for visual, A for sensation, like angina pain, colicky pain. Not only that, you should also include blood pressure here. So when we are talking about blood pressure, it is a visceral sensation. Of course, it is a visceral sensation. And could be, stretches colic, basically. So anything which is happening inside will be GVA. Now, once you have this orientation, you know the four neural column, two motor, two sensory. If you are talking about the skeletal muscles and they are having some spasm, then what is the sensation? See, skeletal muscles are GSC and the sensation will be GSA. For every E, there is a corresponding A column. You are having skeletal muscle spasm. What is skeletal muscle? GSC. And what is the sensation? GSA. Every efferent column should have one afferent column to carry sensation. What about the smooth muscle pain? That is colic. So if you're talking about smooth muscle pain, colic, then which neural column is that? See, what is smooth muscle? That is GVE. So what will be the pain of the smooth muscle? GVA. Every E column has a corresponding A column. If you have a GVE, then there must be a GVA to carry the sensation. So you mean to say cardiac muscle was GVE and cardiac muscle pain angina will be GVA? Yes. So now you know there are four neural columns. Actually, there are total 7 neural columns. We have discussed 4 of them. They are GSC, GSA, and GVE and GVA. So let us proceed further with the details. As you will see that during development, there is a neural tube and neural tube is having alar and basal plate. See, this is a transverse section of the neural tube. And what is it filled with? It is filled with amniotic fluid, working like first CSF. This is a transverse section of the neural tube and filled with amniotic fluid working like first CSF. And then it will develop a sulcus, and that sulcus is called as sulcus limitans. And what is this sulcus limitans doing? That sulcus limitans is dividing the neural tube into 2 parts. What are the 2 parts? There is an anterior basal plate and there is a posterior alar plate. So you're telling that this is a transverse section of neural tube which is filled with some amniotic fluid working like first CSF and then some sulcus developing, which is sulcus limitans. What is it limiting? It is limiting the anterior portion, which is anterior basal plate, and posterior there is posterior alar plate. Alar plate will give you sensory neuron or the afferent pathways, and the basal plate will give you the efferent pathways or the motor pathways. There came a question upon that. Anterior basal plate, which you see here, I'll shade it now, shade it. Anterior basal plate, as you find, is going to give you the motor neurons controlling some muscles. So motor neuron controlling muscles means efferent. Efferent means muscle. Muscle means efferent. Now, you have this basic idea. Let us look at a question. It is asking visceral efferent. What do you mean by efferent? Efferent means muscle. And which muscle are you talking about? Visceral, which could be cardiac or smooth. Now, maybe it is cardiac muscle or maybe it is a smooth muscle. What is the neural column? Or which plate is it giving? We just said because it is about efferent or muscle where the motor neurons develop from. That is your answer. So, of course, your answer is anterior basal plate. It is anterior basal plate which will give you motor neurons to control cardiac muscles, smooth muscles. What about the alar plate? Alar is afferent, A for A. A for A, LR for afferent. So A for A, LR for afferent means it will give you sensory neurons to control, carry some sensations. But the answer is basal plate. Now, once you have some orientation like that, let us look at the details. You see, this is a transverse section of the neural tube which is filled with CSF. Actually, it is amniotic fluid, but working like CSF. And later, we will form the CSF. It is now central canal of spinal cord. If it is a central canal of spinal cord is filled with CSF, then it would have come from choroid plexus. So choroid plexus will form the CSF, which will travel in the central canal of spinal cord. Initially, it came from amniotic fluid. Then what did you say? Actually, neural tube will have a sulcus limitans, and because of that sulcus limitans, it will have two components. Now, there is an anterior basal plate. Anterior is basal plate and posterior is the LR plate. Now, what is this plates doing? Actually, the anterior basal plate is giving you anterior horn cells, and the anterior horn cells are controlling the muscles, skeletal muscles. So, anterior basal plate is giving anterior horn cell of the spinal cord controlling skeletal muscles. Yes, then there are some lateral horn cells also. And what are the lateral horn cells doing? They control cardiac and smooth muscles. So there is cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and there is some skeletal muscle also. Yes, there are three types of muscles. If you're talking about the anterior horn cells, then they will control the skeletal muscles. But if you're talking about lateral horn cells, then they'll control cardiac and smooth muscle, the vessel muscles. But remember, maybe it is the anterior horn cell, or maybe it is the lateral horn cell. They would have come from which plate? They are motor neurons. Motor neurons come from the anterior basal plate. So anterior basal plate give you anterior horn cell, lateral horn cell. Who is giving posterior horn cells? The sensory. The posterior horn cells or the dorsal horn cells, they are sensory. They carry some pathways like spinothalamic tract carrying pain and temperature. So spinothalamic tract carrying pain temperature will begin here. Yes, posterior horn cell. So posterior horn cell will give you spinothalamic tract which is carrying pain temperature is coming from which plate? Afferent pathway, LR plate. So LR plate give you afferent pathway, and these neurons came from the posterior LR plate. Let us draw the diagram and discuss it ourselves also. But you should know that there are anterior horn cell, posterior horn cell, and lateral horn cells. If you are telling anterior and the lateral, they are motor. And because they are motor, they would have come from the anterior basal plate. If you are saying posterior, posterior are sensory, and they would have come from posterior LR plate. This is about the gray matter of the spinal cord. Now we are discussing, and you will see that skeletal muscles are GSE and anterior horn cells. The smooth muscles are GVE, cardiac muscles are GVE and lateral horn cells. But if you are talking about general sensations, that is GSE, or the general visceral sensation, that could be angina, pain, colicky pain, they will both be coming from posterior horn cells. Maybe it is somatic sensation, or maybe it is the visceral sensation. They are both in the posterior horn cell. Posterior horn cells can have sensations, somatic sensation or visceral sensation. But if you are talking about the anterior horn cell, then it is basically skeletal muscle. If you are talking about lateral horn cell, it is the smooth or cardiac muscle. This is the basic orientation. Let's draw the diagram then. When you're talking about this diagram of spinal cord and discussing these three horns, that's the gray matter of spinal cord, we are mentioning that there will be some anterior horn cells controlling the skeletal muscles, the GSC, and there's lateral horn cells which control cardiac smooth muscle, which are GVE. The cardiac smooth muscle can give pain, angina, pain, colicky pain, that will be GVA, but it will be posterior horn cell, GVA. And if skeletal muscle is giving spasm pain, then it will be GSA, posterior horn cells. The posterior horn cells are GSA as well as GVA, posterior horn cells. And if you're talking about GVE or GSE, then They are either the anterior horn cell or the lateral horn cell. This is the diagram which we are supposed to draw, and let's do it. In our diagram, we will also talk about polio lesion. So let's talk about the details of polio virus lesion as well. See, it's a transverse section of the spinal cord and showing central canal filled with CSF, which would have come from choroid plexus. So choroid plexus will form CSF, which will be in the central canal of the spinal cord. What is it surrounded by? Surrounded by some H-shaped gray matter. This is the H-shaped gray matter. And what is there in the gray matter? That will be neuron bodies. These are some neuron bodies now. Which neuron bodies are you seeing here? I am seeing anterior horn cells and posterior horn cells. Then where the anterior horn cell would have come from? The anterior horn cell would have come from the anterior basal plate. And where the posterior horn cell would have come from? Posterior alar plate. Now, once you have this orientation, you have to understand that the anterior horn cells are controlling the skeletal muscles. And as they are controlling skeletal muscles, they are motor neurons. Which kind of motor neurons are they? The lower motor neuron or upper motor neuron? It is spinal cord. This must be lower motor neuron. If you say this is lower motor neuron, then where are the upper motor neurons? Actually, lower motor neurons are in the spinal cord and the upper motor neurons are at the upper level, maybe the cerebrum. Cerebrum will have the upper motor neurons. If you say cerebrum is having the upper motor neurons and the spinal cord is having the lower motor neurons, fine. Do you know polio virus will damage the lower motor neuron? So when you are talking about the polio virus lesion, it is going to affect the anterior horn cell, and as it is affecting anterior horn cell, it will be element type of palsy. Skeletal muscles will be paralyzed and there will be flaccid paralysis. Now, when you say polio virus is giving you flaccid paralysis, let us look at a polio leg patient. So somebody is having a polio leg now? Yes. What happened? Actually, there was a poliovirus lesion which is affecting the anterior horn cell, which is a low motor neuron type of lesion. So there will be some flaccid paralysis of the skeletal muscles. What is flaccid? Flaccid means I am feeling the muscle, but there is no resistance to the touch. You mean to say hypotonia? Yes, hypotonia. Not only hypotonia, but hyporeflexia also. So flaccidity means hypotonia. Yes, not only hypotonia, but hyporeflexia also. Let us look at the patient. Before you continue with this diagram, let us look at the patient. And which patient are you talking about? I have a patient of polio virus lesion. So what happens? I have some lesion here where anterior horn cell. If it is the lesion of anterior horn cell, which kind of muscles will be compromised? Skeletal muscles. So you are getting some poliovirus lesion, anterior horn cell, skeletal muscles compromised. What is it leading to? Flaccid paralysis and areflexia. Let us look at the patient. See, this is our patient. There is flaccid paralysis. What is flaccidity? Actually, when I touch the muscle, there is no resistance to touch. It is called hypotonia. So there is some hypotonia. Yes, you feel the muscle, feel of the muscle is flaccid, hypotonia. Not only hypotonia, take a knee hammer and hit the Achilles tendon. When you are hitting the Achilles tendon, you found no ankle reflexes elicited. So there is hypotonia also, hyporeflexia also. These are all features of LMN palsy. Now, as you say this is your case, let us come back to our diagram which we were drawing here and continue with that. What do you think? The poliovirus is going to affect the skeletal muscle and also visceral muscles? No, it does not affect visceral muscles. Why it is not affecting visceral muscles? Because visceral muscles are controlled by lateral horn cells, and if you are talking about the lateral horn cells are not affected by poliovirus lesion. Now, if you say these are the lateral horn cells not affected by poliovirus lesion, what are they doing? Actually, they also came from the anterior basal plate. They are motor neurons. Even lateral horn cells are motor neurons. They would have come from the anterior basal plate, and they control muscles. Which muscles they are controlling? The visceral muscles. What is visceral muscles? That could be the cardiac muscle, or that could be the smooth muscle. Now, if you're telling that it could be cardiac or smooth muscle, the visceral muscles, they are actually controlled by autonomic nervous system. And autonomic nervous system could be a sympathetic neuron, or may it be the parasympathetic neuron. So understand, lateral horn cell could be a sympathetic neuron, or it could also be a parasympathetic neuron, because this is autonomic nervous system, and this sympathetic or parasympathetic neuron is controlling cardiac or smooth muscle. Would have come from the anterior basal plate. Anterior basal plates not only give you anterior horn cell, but also the lateral horn cells. But lateral horn cells are not affected by poliovirus lesion. And what did you say? What is the neural column for the visceral muscles? Visceral muscles, we said the neural column is GVE. When you say it is GVE, what is G for? General. And what is V for? Visceral. And what is E for? Muscle. Efferent means muscle. Efferent is always muscle. You mean to say general visceral muscle? Yes. And what is most of the skeletal muscles? Most of the skeletal muscles are GSC. When you say most of the skeletal muscles are GSC, what is G for? General. And what is S for? Skeletal means somatic. Somatic means skeletal. And E for muscle. You mean to say G for general, S for somatic or skeletal, and E for muscle. General, skeletal, muscle. Yes, most of these skeletal muscles are GSC, except few skeletal muscles. And what are those few skeletal muscles? Actually, they are special. And what is the neural column called? That we'll find out. But here, most of skeletal muscles are GSC. What if I am having skeletal muscle spasm now? If you have skeletal muscle spasm, it is painful. Who is carrying the pain? Must be GSA, because every E column has a corresponding A column. Every E column has a corresponding A column. Means the skeletal muscle spasm is pain carried by GSA? Yes. What about the angina pain, colicky pain? Then you have A here. You mean to say every E column has a corresponding A column. Angina pain, colicky pain. Cardiac pain is angina pain. And smooth muscle pain is colicky pain. So when you are talking about smooth muscle pain, colicky, or maybe you are talking about the cardiac muscle pain, angina pain, who is carrying all that? That must be GVA. Now, where is that GVA or GSA coming? Will come here, posterior horn cell, posterior LR plate. So posterior LR plate will give you posterior horn cell giving some LR afferent pathways. Yes, they carry the LR afferent pathway. A for A, LR for afferent. You're trying to say that this is the neuron which is giving spinal thalamic tract? Yes, to carry the pain. Maybe it is somatic pain, or maybe it is the visceral pain. So posterior LR plate is giving LR afferent pathways, and that is the posterior horn cell. It's a sensory neuron. Yes, it is sensory. And it is giving some sensory pathway like spinal thalamic tract. Yes, and that spinal thalamic tract is carrying, it is capable of carrying somatic pain, visceral pain. That means if you are talking about GSA or you are talking about GVA, they are all here. So maybe it is GSA or GVA, they'll come here. Maybe it is the skeletal muscle spasm, or maybe it is angina pain or colicky pain. So may it be angina pain, colicky pain, GVA, or may it be skeletal muscle spasm, GSA, that is all reached here and further carried by spinal thalamic tract. So this is the basics we needed to know. Now once you have this orientation, you see, we have talked about basically this diagram. We have told that there is a GVA which is carrying angina pain, colicky pain, and there is a GSA which is carrying the somatic pain, skeletal muscle pain, and both of them are the posterior LR plate components. But if you are talking about anterior basal plate, it gave two types of neurons, the anterior horn cell and the lateral horn cell. If it is anterior horn cell, then it is the GSA, the skeletal muscles you are talking about. And if it is lateral horn cell, then it is the GVA, that is skeletal, that is as smooth muscle and the cardiac muscle. So we have talked about anterior horn cell, lateral horn cell, and both of them are actually posterior horn cell. Posterior horn cell from posterior alar plate and anterior lateral horn cell from the anterior basal plate. This is the basics. Now let us move further. You see, there are 7 neural columns to discuss. There are 3 motor and there are 4 sensory. But we have discussed only 2 sensory and 2 motor. So there is 1 motor remaining and there are 2 sensory remaining. Total 7 are there. We'll find this diagram in Gray's Anatomy. Gray's Anatomy will tell you that there are 7 neural columns. And actually we need to know about them because there are questions not only at AIIMS level, PGH Chandigarh, PGH JIPMER, but also All India PG and DNB level, any level. They are asking these questions very frequently. So as I'm telling, there are 4 sensory, which we need to know, and there are 3 motor. Let us first focus upon 3 motor. And what about the 3 motor? Let us see the 3 motor. You will find that we already have discussed the skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles are actually GSC. Most of the skeletal muscles are GSC, but not all skeletal muscles. And what are the smooth muscle, cardiac muscle? Smooth muscle, cardiac muscle are actually GVE. We have already discussed GVE. So may it be the smooth muscle or cardiac muscle, they are GVE. But then you have the 3rd column, special muscles. And who are the special muscles? That is SVE. If you are talking about the special muscle, SVE, S for special, V for visceral, E for muscle. But they are not visceral, they are skeletal muscles, they are pharyngeal arch muscles. Now, understand, pharyngeal arch muscles are skeletal muscles, but they are under the neural column called as SVE. S for special, V for visceral, E for muscle, special visceral muscle. But why would you consider them as special visceral muscle despite the fact that they are skeletal muscles? See, pharyngeal arch muscles are the muscles of palate, pharynx and larynx for speech and swallowing. What is pharyngeal arch muscles? Pharyngeal arch muscles are the muscles which develop around the pharynx, could be muscles of palate, pharynx and larynx. So, when you are talking about the muscles of palate or pharynx or larynx, what are they doing? They are the muscle for speech and swallowing, and they are developing around the visceral tube. Which visceral tube they are developing around? The gut tube and the respiratory tube. And because they are developing around the gut tube, respiratory tube, they are called as SVE. Maybe it is a misnomer. Maybe you can consider it as a misnomer. Skeletal muscles called as visceral muscles. But it has a logic that despite the fact that the muscles of the palate, pharynx, larynx are skeletal muscles, they are under the category special visceral muscles because they are developing around the visceral tube, that is the gut tube and the respiratory tube. So just remember, pharyngeal arch muscles are SVE. See, most of the skeletal muscle in our body, maybe biceps brachii or biceps femoris in the lower limb, any biceps, any skeletal muscle are all GSC except the skeletal muscles which are developing around the pharynx, and that could also include muscles of mastication, first pharyngeal arch, muscles of facial expression, second pharyngeal arch, or muscles of palate, pharynx, larynx, arch number 3, 4 and 6. See, which muscle develop in first pharyngeal arch? Muscles of mastication. Which muscle develop in second pharyngeal arch? Muscles of facial expression. Which muscles develop in arch number 3, 4, 6? Muscles of palate, pharynx and larynx. So they are skeletal muscles, but under SVE column. Just have some idea. Now, if you have told so, fine. What about the sensory column? You told there are 4 sensory, but we have discussed only 2 sensory. We have discussed only the GSA and GVA. What are the 2 others? That we will find out. Now, you see, this is the 4 sensory columns which we know only 2 of them, and we will talk 2 more. And here, you have discussed the GSA, that was general somatic sensation, touch pain, temperature, etc. Then you have talked about GVA, which was angina pain, colicky pain, cardiac muscle, smooth muscle pain. But there are 2 more. They are called SSA and they are called SVA. Now, what is this SSA and what is this SVA? Actually, they are special sensations. Now, if you say they are special sensations, can you tell me some special sensations? Yes, they are vision, optic nerve vision, and it is the hearing balance, the vestibulocochlear nerve. So, vestibulocochlear nerve for hearing balance is special sensation. These two, cranial number 2, vision. Cranial number 8 for hearing balance. These two are SSA. Now, if you say they are SSA, what is S for special? And what is the A for sensation? And what is the middle S for somatic? What is somatic? Somatic means peripheral, something which came from periphery. So, you're telling that may it be the vision or maybe it is the hearing or equilibrium, that is the number 2 and the number 8, they are SSA, yes. What is S for? Special. And A for sensation. They are special sensation of somatic nature. Special sensation of somatic nature. What is somatic nature? See, if the sensation came from inside, it will be visceral sensation like angina pain, colicky pain, blood pressure. Is all visceral sensation. But if the sensation came from outside, vision come from outside, hearing come from outside, the gravity is outside. So vision, the optic nerve, hearing, the vestibular cochlear nerve balance, all that is from periphery. That is why it is somatic. But if you are having that kind of a logic, then why would you say that taste and smell is SVA? What is S for? Special. And what is V for? Visual. And what is A for? Sensation, the efferent. But why would you say taste and smell is visceral sensation? According to your logic, the taste come from outside, smell come from outside. So smell come from outside and taste come from outside. They should also be somatic. Then maybe it is a misnomer. Maybe it is a misnomer. So you have one more misnomer now. Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure, but maybe it is a misnomer. But why would anybody use a misnomer? Why the somatic sensations are called as visceral sensation? The logic could be that they are developing around the visual tube. And which visual tube they are developing around? The gut tube and respiratory tube. So they were developing around gut tube and respiratory tube. What is that? Gut tube, taste, and respiratory tube, smell. So smell and taste, yes, are SVA, yes. And this vision and hearing is SSA. Yes, vision and hearing is SSA, but the smell and taste is SVA. Actually, there are 4 special sensations and they are here now. So, you already know GSA, general sensations like touch pain, temperature, etc. The skeletal muscle spasm also is GSA. If you're talking about the angina pain, colicky pain is the GVA. If you're talking about the vision and the hearing, it is SSA. And if you're talking about the smell and the taste, it is SVA. Who is bringing taste? The nerves, FGV nerves. And what about the FGV nerves? What is F for? What is G for? V for? F for facial nerve and G for glossopharyngeal nerve and V for vagus nerve. Remember, the taste is received by the FGV nerve, F for the facial nerve, G for the glossopharyngeal nerve, V for the vagus nerve. Remember, these nerves, FGV nerves, belong to SVA. These kind of questions will come. Under SVA, you have all the nerves except. And then you have to be careful about the various nerves under this neural column. Because the number 2 and the number 8 are, the number 2 and 8 are pure sensory nerve, and those pure sensory nerves are SSA. Now, as you are going to draw a diagram now for special or maybe journal, somatic or motor columns, there are 7 of them. Let's do that. There are 7 neural columns, out of which 4 are sensory and 3 motor. We'll draw them now. This is our diagram. This is kind of a revision. Now, revise it. So, what are we drawing? Actually, what we are drawing is neural tube. which you have already drawn. It's a neural tube and filled with CSF, and it is having a sulcus limitans, and that sulcus limitans is dividing the neural tube into anterior basal plate, and there is a posterior alar plate. The posterior alar plate will give you some of the sensory neurons, and anterior basal plate will give you motor neurons. Motor is efferent, and efferent is always muscle. So you have taken a transverse section of the neural tube filled with the CSF there, and there is a sulcus limitans which is separating anterior basal plate from the posterior alar plate. Posterior alar plate will give you the sensory neurons, and anterior basal plate will give you motor neurons. Motor neurons are the efferent neurons controlling the muscles, and there are 3 efferent columns we have to discuss. There are 4 afferent columns. Those 4 afferent columns would have come from the posterior alar plate. There are some sensory neuron giving the afferent pathway. Alar is afferent, afferent is alar. So let's do it. See, I have told you the muscles are 3 types. If you're talking about the GSC, then GSC is including most of the skeletal muscle, but there are some skeletal muscles which are not GSC. So what are those skeletal muscles? Actually, skeletal muscles are in 2 groups. When you say skeletal muscles are in 2 groups, most of the skeletal muscles are GSE, but then there are some special muscles also, SVE, and they are the pharyngeal arch muscles. Though the pharyngeal arch muscles are skeletal muscles, they are called as SVE, S for special, V for visceral, and E for muscle. Now we have to talk about the nerves controlling them. So what about the nerves controlling? Let us restrict ourselves to the brainstem area. Restricting ourselves to the brainstem area, because pharyngeal arch muscles are basically from the brainstem area. You see, you tell me the nerve of the first pharyngeal arch, second, and the third, fourth, and sixth arch. See, arch number 1 is having mandibular nerve branch of trigeminal, controlling muscles of mastication, developing in the pharyngeal arch 1. So you're talking about pharyngeal arch muscles, and muscles of mastication develop in the first pharyngeal arch, controlled by mandibular nerve branch of trigeminal. So mandibular nerve branch of trigeminal nerve is SVE neural column. If you're talking about the facial nerve controlling the muscles of facial expression, then that will be also SVE. If you're talking about number 3, 4, 6, they control. See, arch number 3, 4, 6 will be having some nerves contributing to nucleus ambiguous. Now number 9, 10, 11, nucleus ambiguous. Arch number 3, 4, 6 contributing to nucleus ambiguous. Now number 9, 10, 11, and controlling the muscles of palate, pharynx, and larynx, involved in speech and swallowing. So as you see, arch number 3, 4, 6 will be controlled by nerve number 9, 10, 11, and contributing to nucleus ambiguous, which is controlling muscles of palate, pharynx, larynx for speech and swallowing. These are all skeletal muscles, but they are called as special visceral muscles. Can you tell me some brainstem nuclei which can control some general skeletal muscles? Yes, I'll tell you, the eyeball muscle and tongue muscle. You mean to say eyeball and tongue muscles do not develop in the pharyngeal arches? No. Eyeball and tongue muscles do not develop in the pharyngeal arches. So they are called as GSE. Now, if you say G for general, S for somatic or skeletal, E for muscle, general skeletal muscle, eyeball and tongue muscles are controlled by which nerve? Eyeball has a formula. What is the formula for eyeball? Nerve number 3, 4, and 6. So eyeball has a formula, and it is the number 3, 4, 6 which will control the eyeball muscle. What about the tongue muscle? That is the 12th nerve. They are pure motor nerves. Now, number 3, 4, 6 and 12 are pure motor nerves controlling some muscles. 12th nerve is hypoglossal nerve controlling tongue muscle. My point is very simple. When the examiner will ask you GSC neural column, which sometimes is called just SE, they will see it is a short form. GSC is sometimes called just SE. So SE means somatic efferent. Actually, it means general somatic efferent. They'll ask you, all of the following nerves is SE except. So you should remember what is under SE or GSC. Now, number 3, 4, 6 and 12. And what is 7th nerve then? 7th nerve, yes. Muscle of facial expression, yes. Okay. If it is 7th nerve muscle of facial expression, then it must be SVE. That question has already come. So 7th nerve will be SVE, but the number 3, 4, 6 and 12 will be SE, which is actually the short form of GSE. Now, what about the third neural column? Because we understand that there is 3 efferent column. If one is GSC, one is SVE, then what is the third one? Third one is actually the GVE. And what do you include in GVE? That is the cardiac and smooth muscle. So, as you can make out that there are 3 efferent columns. One is the GSC, one is the SVE, one is the GVE. What is under GVE? Under GVE, I have cardiac and smooth muscles. So, cardiac muscle, G for general, V for visceral, E for muscle, general, visceral muscle, cardiac smooth muscles. What if they have pain? Cardiac pain having angina or smooth muscle having colicky pain, we will carry. Simple. Every efferent column has a afferent column. GVA will carry. So, can we discuss GVE then GVA also? Yes, let us discuss. You have to understand every efferent column has a corresponding afferent column. Let us write it down. GSC, you will have a GSA. Now, when you say GSE, you will have a GSA. It is like, I am having a skeletal muscle spasm. Who will carry the pain? The skeletal muscle spasm pain will be carried by GSA. G for general, S for somatic, and A for sensation. Every efferent column has a corresponding afferent column. So, GSA, what does it include? Not only skeletal muscle spasm pain, but it also includes general sensation. That could be touch, pain, temperature, etc. Even touch, pain, temperature, etc. Even proprioception is under this category only, general sensations. And what about the counterpart of SVE? Because you told that there is every efferent has an afferent column. So, actually this was a misnomer. Why did you say it is a misnomer? Because, you know, the skeletal muscles being called as visceral muscles. So, it appears like it is a misnomer. So, what is a misnomer for counterpart misnomer then? Counterpart SVA. And what is SVA for? SVA, yes. SVA. I think SVA is for smell and taste, because vision and hearing is SSA. So that was SSA and this was SVA. Let us write it down now, both of them. So as you are talking about the 4 sensory column, one of them you have known the GSA. What is the other? They are special sensations. What is special sensation? That there is SSA and SVA. And what do you include under SSA? SSA, yes. I include the number 2 and 8. Why? Because the number 2 is for vision and the number 8 is for hearing and balance. And what is SVA? SVA is the smell and the taste. Taste means the FGV nerve. Yes, FGV nerve. But it is appearing like a misnomer. Why it is appearing like a misnomer? Because, you know, these smell sensation came from outside, taste came from outside. They are actually somatic sensation, but called as visceral sensations. So, SVA, yes, smell and taste. But vision and hearing balance is SSA. Now, there is one more, because there are 4 sensory. So, one is GSA and one is the SVA and one is the, yeah, I know the 4th one. I know, angina pain, colicky pain, yes. So, what will you write it? like that. It must be GVA. What is G for? General. What is V for? Visceral. What is A for? Sensation. So general visceral sensation means the angina pain from cardiac muscle and the colicky pain from the smooth muscle. Yes, maybe blood pressure also from the inside the body, you know, smooth muscles detecting blood pressure. So there are 4 neural columns basically. Remember, every E column has a corresponding A column. If you have a GSC, there's a GSA. If there's a SVE, there's a SVA. If there's a GVE, there's a GVA. But SSA is alone. It does not have a counterpart. There is no SSE in the body. So SSA is alone. Yes. And there's no SSE in the body. No. There is no SSE in the body. So there is only SSA. Yes. That is not a paired neural column. So that is what we wanted to have some idea. See, I told you it is a complex topic and difficult to master, but we have to master it because there are questions coming. So how do you master it? By practicing more and more of MCQs. That is the only way you can master your preparation for PG entrance exam. Be careful. I told you in the beginning of class, practice more and more of MCQs. That is the only way to get a good rank. So, let us do it. Taste is now there. Taste. What do you think is the answer? I'll give you a mnemonic now. Sometime mnemonics will help you in the exam. I'll give you the mnemonic. My mnemonic is SWAT and TS. If you say your mnemonic is SWAT and TS, you mean to say SVA is the answer? Yeah. What is T for? T is for taste. And what is NTS? NTS is nucleus tractus solitarius. And what is S for? S, yes. S is the special, V is the visceral, A is the sensation, special visceral sensation. Now, if you say the special visceral sensation of the taste which is carried to nucleus tractus solitarius, remember, nucleus tractus solitarius has 2 parts. It has a tip, and the tip will receive the taste, but it has a bottom, and bottom will receive angina pain, colicky pain, or maybe the blood pressure, or maybe chemoreception. What is chemoreception? Like the pH of the body or CO2 of the body. Are you talking about carotid body? Yes. Carotid sinus? Yes. So carotid sinus, carotid body, visceral sensations. Carotid body for chemoreception, pH and CO2 perception. Carotid sinus for blood pressure detection, maybe angina pain, colicky pain, coming to the bottom of what? Bottom of nucleus tractus solitarius. Nucleus tractus solitarius has 2 components. The tip is for the taste. So you are telling that taste will reach to the tip of the nucleus tractus solitarius and the bottom is receiving some GVA. Yes, general visceral sensations come to the bottom. You mean to say nucleus tractus solitarius is serving 2 neural columns? Yes, upper is SVA and lower is GVA. So you're telling that upper part is SVA, lower part is GVA, G for general, V for visceral, A for sensation. General visceral sensation could be the chemoreception or coming from inside the body, you know, inside the body. General visceral sensation. So GVA is also nucleus tractus solitarius, yes, but the bottom. GVA is also nucleus tractus solitarius, but going to the bottom. What is SSA then? SSA, you don't know what is SSA. SSA, SSA. You mean to say the number 2 and 8? Yes, the number 2 and 8. That is for the vision and hearing balance. What is GSA? GSA, you know, general sensations could be touch, pain, temperature, etc. So GSA is the touch, pain, temperature, etc. Yes, but what is the answer? Answer you already got. It is SVA. So what about this question now? It is asking SE. When it is SE, it is a short form of GSC. But why would you say it is short form of GSC? It could be SSC also. No, we don't have anything SSC in the body. There is only GSC. So because we don't have any SSC, so GSC is simply called SE. Yes, sometime. Okay, you're telling that this SE is basically GSC, journal skeletal muscles? Yes. And most of the skeletal muscles are under this category. Now, if you say most of the skeletal muscles are GSC, there are some special muscles also, pharyngeal arch muscles, and those pharyngeal arch muscles must be SVE, special vessel muscles, pharyngeal arch muscles. And once you have that orientation, you already got your answer. Remember, most of the skeletal muscles are GSC. The question is on GSE, and there are very few skeletal muscles which are actually SVE, the pharyngeal arch muscles. Like, what is the answer then? You already got it. This is the answer. Why? Because it is the facial nerve controlling the muscles of facial expression, which will develop in the second pharyngeal arch. And because it is the second pharyngeal arch, it is the SVE neural column. Then what about the number 346? The number 346, you remember, it is a formula for the eyeball. And eyeball muscles are not developing in pharyngeal arches, so they must be GSE. You have known that the number 346 is the pure motor nerve to control the muscles of the eyeball, formula for the eyeball. Now, number 346, the muscles of eyeball do not develop in pharyngeal arches. Muscles of eyeball and tongue do not develop in pharyngeal arches. Now, number 346 and 12, they belong to GSC neural column. So, you mean to say the exception is choice number A. Yes.